He led his battalion from the front and died. There's talk that the colonel may be awarded a posthumous VC for his gallantry in a military action on which the official verdict from London was of unstinting praise.
The lives of the Falkland Islanders in that area are safe. 1,400 men in well-prepared positions were outfought by a magnificent battalion of some 600 parachutists. In my view, this is one of the most brilliant and courageous battalion actions which has been conducted since the end of World War II. And all of those of us in the armed forces salute to para.
The graves were on a small hillock overlooking San Carlos Bay, a quiet spot set aside well before anybody had died. The flanks secure, it was time to start moving on Port Stanley. All the heavy equipment, the guns and their ammunition would need all the helicopters that were available. There was no other way to move it across ground that oozed with water. The men would have to walk. The climate was a crippling combination of cold and damp, something that would test their survival training to the limit. Already some men were beginning to suffer from trench foot, a sort of mild frostbite that would take them out of action for days or weeks. The Argentinians were relying on the mountains as a barrier. They stretched the full 50 miles, high and cold, from San Carlos to Port Stanley. There were no tracks. They'd never been needed before. The Argentinians assumed that the British would not attempt to come over the top in midwinter. But they miscalculated. That was the way the Marines and the Paras chose to go. Their packs weighed 50 to 60 pounds each. Around their waist they wore a webbing belt with survival equipment and ammunition, another 30 pounds. It took a fit man to carry that load. They couldn't rely on getting any help. They were going to have to walk every step of the way. And sometimes there weren't even enough helicopters to get their rations to them. So at the end of the day, the campaign was to depend on one thing above all else: the ability of the Marines and the Paras to walk to the battle and still be tough enough to fight it. Ahead of us, the brigade headquarters was being set up in a barn. The maps were being marked with the dispositions of the enemy. The final plans for moving the last dozen miles to Port Stanley were being laid. The end could not be far off. The desperate need was to get men up to the front. They were being brought round by sea and slipped ashore at night. But for their equipment, ships would need to come in and anchor. The engineers were already repairing the bridge between Fitzroy and Bluff Cove. The Argentinians had blown up one end. It would have to be repaired before vehicles could move across it. But the retreating troops had only had time to destroy one pair of supports, and the work was well advanced. Even the mines left in the rubble hadn't slowed things up. The brigade was sufficiently established to abandon the attempt at keeping its position secret. The Blues and Royals with their armoured vehicles patrolled forward, probing the strength of the enemy defences. Two support ships had arrived and started by unloading anti-aircraft defences. But luck went against them. The mountain mists which had obscured the Argentine observation posts cleared that day, and the Argentine Air Force, dormant for nearly 10 days, struck a final blow. Lacking adequate radar, the first warning came as the planes swept low over the ships, Sir Tristram and Sir Galahad. The anti-aircraft missiles were not yet effective. Both ships were hit. Sir Galahad was immediately in flames. Two companies of the Welsh Guard were still on board. The helicopters abandoned their tasks, queued up to join the perilous rescue. The most horrifying moment of the whole war, made worse by our helplessness. There was nothing that we could do except wait with the medical teams on the cliff tops.
Okay, thin out, I don't want too many people around here. No bandage.
Right, send us up. Yeah? Send us up. Right into there, right? Push it fully home. What is it?
It's all...
Oh, what about this one?
Swap up his house. You want this one right now?
Just cold. This.
Quick, get it, short!
Squeeze out of him.
Get it, hang on.
Some of the life raft started to drift back towards the ship. The helicopter pilots used their rotors to blow the lightweight craft to safety. Every boat and landing craft went out to help. The unanswered question was why hadn't they been used 5 hours earlier to get the men off as soon as they'd arrived. Apart from the 400 soldiers, each ship had a crew of 68, many of them Chinese.
Come on, pull! Okay.